Today is April 4th, 2022, and this is a video about floater frames that's used for oil paintings, usually oil paintings on canvas, but I'm going to talk about using floater frames on paintings on canvas and painting on boards today. And here's a little grouping of floater frames. You can see the different colors and sizes and everything that they come in today. Wasn't that long ago there was just a few to choose from, and now you see some with a wider profile and different colors, and they're real popular with kind of a minimalist look that people are after these days. Okay, here's the two pieces that I'm working on right now that are going to be in these black and gold floater frames. They both get the identical frame, and they're quite different sizes. This is a painting that they don't have the edge finished, which is kind of usually a problem when you're doing a floater frame, because you can often, at the right angle kind of detect the not very attractive edge with the staples and the drips of paint over the edge. And we're also doing the same floater frame on this oil painting on a board, and normally these aren't used that often for floater frames, but I'll show you how to do it because it has a nice look to it. Once you get it all in with the spacers and everything, it's hard to tell that it's on a board. You'd almost swear it's on a canvas unless you look real close. But this painting is like a lot of paintings stretched on stretcher bars. The size is quite different from one end to the other, and this oil painting on the left side here, it measures 22 inches, and over on the right side it measures 22 and 13/16, which is just a hair over 21 and 13/16, which is just a hair over 21 and 3/4. So what we do is not cut crooked frames. We cut the floater frame real tight to the largest side, and then we cut the next one the same size, so it's just going to be a little bit more space around the edge on the shorter side, and it's different on the top and bottom too, but you don't want to be cutting out of size or out of square frames for people's pictures that happen to be not square. And this one measures exact, so that's no problem there. And of course the frames are so thin, there isn't much sense of trying to nail them. The nail would probably go out the sides if you tried to nail these, and we do it with just gluing and no nails, and I'll show you that next. But before I went to that, I wanted to show that the gold edge has kind of the goldeny color on the raw edge of the frame there, and then the black inside and back has been magic markers used to mark those so that if none of the raw edge will show. And just wanted to show you things are as crazy as ever in the shop. People are coming in faster than we can put stuff away. So this is a table that we wait on people, and I just keep piling layers and layers of projects here till we get them all written up and ready to go. So this one is this is probably the most popular floater frame that we were looking at for the project that's under this board. That's a real popular black floater frame. And I'll be using my foot pedal operated miter vise here and to put those floater frames together. And here's a bunch of frames we just put together. And as you can see, some of them have tape around them, and you know, we're trying to take frames that sometimes are twisted and make them perfect, and we use the tape to make sure it holds together until the glue dries it into submission there. And these floater frames that I'll be putting together are tape only, and the top of the floater frame has gold on it, and that gold will peel off if the tape is put on the top. So I'll set up my tripod next and show you how to put a floater frame together. Okay, I have my camera set up on my tripod now, and I've got it so it's so I can look at the screen, and of course everything that you see in writing is written backwards. So here's the corner weld glue that I like so much, and of course it's just corner weld, but it's written backwards because I'm looking at the screen so I can make sure I don't have my fat head in the camera view. So anyway, I just put some of that on the little holder there. And there's the edge of the frames exposed. And what I like to do is put plenty of glue on the back edge and on the inside, but hardly any glue in the front, because sometimes it's not easy to clean the glue that squeezes out in the, especially deep in the corner there. And by the way, I just opened up a brand new bottle of glue, and it seems a little watery compared to how it normally comes out. So that's making me a little worried, because this is basically just being held by the glue. And as you can see, I'm kind of backing the frame in and out, and it needed to be pushed up a little bit on the left, because the left member seems to be just slightly higher than the right side. And then I spray some water on some of these leftover glass cleaning towels. Try and get all the glue out of there. And of course, since I put most of the glue to the outside back, that's where it's squishing off. And now I'm very carefully taking some glue off the top, and I'm looking inside there, trying to take the glue off the inside edge there. And of course the stretched canvas is going to cover up most of the bottom edge there. But the secret to this is taping it. And I just use good old masking tape. But see, if I was to put that across here, when I went to peel it off, it'd probably take some of that gold with it. So what I do is take Post-it notes and put it around the edge to cover up that gold. And by the way, if you want to glue frames together rather than nail them at all, I mean any type of frame, you can do that, but I've always thought of the nails as just holding it while the glue is drying. If you ever want to do an experiment, put a frame together with this type of glue and try and break it apart even an hour later, and it's usually almost impossible to pull apart unless you hit it on the ground on the corner, so the leverage breaks it apart. And then what I do is just tape it across. And see, if this was just a normal black floater frame, I wouldn't have to worry about the gold peeling off. I wouldn't put the Post-it notes on there. And I'm pulling real tight. It's almost, like a spring that you're pulling there, because this tape does stretch. And then I'm wrapping it around the back too, again pulling it tight. And sometimes the tape will break where the edge of the frame is cutting it. And I'm probably going a little overboard here with the tape, but you get the idea. All you're doing is holding it together so you can go on to the next frame that you're putting together. And I always try and remember the long members on the right side, short members on the left side, so then I don't accidentally put two shorts and two longs together. I know I've explained that before in a video. So there it is out of the frame. And now I'll go to the next one and the next one and just keep doing that till I have both frames all completely done. But I usually let the first half set up for an hour or two before I put the other halves together. Okay, we now have the frame halves all glued together, and you can see how they're all taped up and everything. And as long as I've got this all out, I thought I would show you a way to alter that top line of color if you wanted to. Just like this little painting is kind of got a lot of grays and silvery colors too. The reason they went with the gold top one is that it was matching another frame that is going to be for the same people. And if you wanted to change the color of that top edge, you could use Rub and Buff. That's this stuff. And you can get this on eBay and Michaels and Hobby Lobby, and I don't know if Walmart and other places have it, but it's kind of fun to play with. And the thing is, these tubes dry out so fast once you take the cover off. And for years, I would end up using them like once or twice, and then the cover, the Rub and Buff would just kind of turn to crusty powder. And so I started years ago putting them in a glass jar of water and turning them upside down so that the oxygen can't get in and dry out the Rub and Buff. And they're kind of expensive for how little you get, but a little goes a long way. And I just thought I would show you, like here's this silver, and it's pretty easy to just put a little on your fingers, and it's easy to just spread out with your fingers and just go like this. And it comes right off with Goo Gone. And what I really like it for too is to alter the color of frames that have like a little design in them. Like this is years and years ago, I put a little bit of blue pearl on one for a customer. Just recently I had a customer in that wanted a gold inside and a brown frame, and I saved him a lot of money by just showing him quickly how I could take some gold rub and buff and put on the inside lip of this brown frame, and it cost almost nothing compared to putting a gold fillet inside of the frame. Those fillets are like the cost of another frame. But what's fun is frames with, you know, little designs in them really lend themselves well to rub and buff. And normally too, if I was doing this for an actual frame, I'd take a piece of that blue tape that comes off real easy, lay it over it, so all that would touch would be the little bumps. But you can see how quickly it makes a difference there on the look of the frame. And Goo Gone will take this whole thing off in no time. And here's one of my favorite frames that I've done that with over the years, is this one. And see just that little edge. It's kind of cool. So I'll let these frames dry, but I just wanted to give you a little tutorial about rub and buff. Now here's the jar that I put them in, and it's just got some water at the bottom. And here's the Goo Gone that takes this off real easy. Oh, by the way, this beautiful little painting was a commission by a customer. This is Dan Jones, a very popular local artist. This little painting cost $850, but there'll never be another one just like it, so it's kind of cool. Okay, these have set up all night, and today is Tuesday morning, April 5th, and so these corners have set up to cure overnight, and now it's just a matter of you know, taking all the tape off and the post-it notes. And if there's any glue residue from the tape, a lot of times you can just rub your fingers and it'll kind of peel off. But anytime you're doing this tape system, be sure to test the frame to make sure that when you peel the tape off, it doesn't take the surface of the frame off. And so there we go. Now I'll take the rest of the corners off and show you how to install the pictures in the frames. Okay, here's the frames with all the tape off, and as you can see, you can't just, you know, set, well, I guess you could set something like that, but most people want this fairly close to the surface. So we're going to take black foam core and build spacers up to the surface. And what I like to do is measure from the back edge to the inside opposite opening, so that's 5.5 inches. And then when you center them, you have a nice recess so you don't see behind the painting the spacers behind it, and it just kind of magically floats there. And with this painting on stretcher bars, this can fit in here like it is if we wanted to, and it's recessed about 1/8 of an inch, and I'm tempted to do that because when it's recessed in a little bit, you see a little less likely to see the not very attractive edge of this thing. So if I put it closer to the surface and make it flush like I do on most of them, you're more apt to see that edge. So in this case, I'm going to just let it recess in. And of course, remember, this is the one that was so crooked where one side was 24 and the other side was close to 23 3/4, and the same thing here. And so I need to put spacers in here to kind of even out the best I can the distance between the edge of the frame and the canvas, edge of the canvas. And what I do to make spacers is I use some 2-ply mat board and just kind of rip up pieces. And then I also use 4-ply mat board. And again, the reason I kind of like to rip it is it tapers the edge, so you can kind of slide it in. And then if it's got some real big gaps, I'll even take some foam core and make chunks of that. And again, I kind of slice it off with a razor blade at a steep angle. And this will be kind of close as far as if it, like this 2 3/4 inch edge, we'll see if it's actually so much difference that I can actually put a couple spacers out of foam core in there. And what I'm doing is kind of squishing the foam core down to try and get it started. Yeah, it's very close to making it, but it won't quite fit 2 foam cores in there. So then what I'll do is take the 2-ply or the 4-ply mat board and put a few of those in there. I'll put 2 on each end and see where it lines up. Okay, we've got 2 in. I doubt that it'll take a third, but let me try. Yeah, I could squish that in. And I could squish this in. So there, now we have that pretty equal on the 3 pieces of 4-ply mat. That's how much it's off there. And now this other side that was 24 inches, we'll see how many of these I can get in By the way, it's not uncommon to have like a little bit off, but having a 1/4 inch difference on a piece this small is not that common. Now I could get the pieces in with one, and there's still a little bit of room, so then I'll grab the 2-ply and push that in there. There. So I just barely can fit in one 2-ply. So I've got one 4-ply and one 2-ply on each end, and this other side has 3 4-ply mats on each end. And then I just keep doing that. You're always evening out the space as you go to try, and I think it's the best look. And now on this edge, we'll put in a 4-ply there and a 4-ply there. And it looks to me like I can shove in another 2-ply. I mean, the 2-ply is just pretty thin. And that's pretty good. Now let's go over here. And again, this bottom was quite a bit narrower than the top. So let's try a couple of the 4-ply here. You'll notice I put one in one side, then go to the opposite side, and then keep going back and forth. Now that's pretty snug. And that last one is kind of a little bit looser, but I don't want to put, you know, another 2-ply in here with these 2 4-plies. And right now it's pretty good. Sometimes I'll go underneath the piece, kind of grab the stretcher bar and pull it a little bit to try and even it out. But there we go. You kind of get the idea. And then what I do to nail it in is I use a nail gun underneath, and yep, there we go. And then I'm using nails that are, you know, long enough to go through the base of the stretcher bar, but hopefully not long enough to go through the face of the painting. And this is pretty close. I could actually use a little bit narrower. In fact, I'm going to do that. Go get ones a little bit narrower, because when this is in here, I mean, it's still got a ways down. You know what? I'm going to change my mind and go back to using these again. It shouldn't go through the face. You want it to hold, but you don't want it to ever have nails coming through the face of the thing. And I've already got my compressor pumped up. And what I do is hang this over the edge, and then I hold the stretch canvas down with my thumb, and then just shoot the nail underneath. And of course, avoid shooting a nail through your finger. Yep, that felt real good. And you don't need a ton of nails in this, just a few. And of course, whatever you do, don't get too close to the edge, because you don't want a nail going between the canvas and the edge of the frame. You don't want to be seeing these nails at all. I kind of been doing it more by feel. Underneath I feel the edge of the frame, and then I just back it in about 1/4 of an inch, and then I angle it a little bit towards the inside. But if I wasn't holding on to it, it would try and push the canvas out a little bit, so you need to hang on to it when you're putting it in. And here's the last side to do. There. So that's all stuck in really tight with a good test. There's no way that's coming out very easy. And then of course you pull out all the spacers. And there we go. Here, I'll put that up and stand back and you can take a look. Okay, there it is. And you can see that even though we're working with a piece that was 1/4 of an inch higher on the one side than the other, when you use that system where you space it across from each other as evenly as you can, it still turns out real nice. And of course, from different angles, like if I'm standing way to the left or way to the right, it makes the frame edge look closer to the painting, you know, when I'm off at an angle. But if I'm standing right in front of it, kind of like the camera is right now, you can see a lot more of an even border. But there's not a lot you can do when the canvas is so, you know, out of square there. And it's one of those things. I mean, a person could, I suppose, take the canvas off, try restretching it, but I mean, it's a antique piece done many years ago, so it kind of is what it is. And if she wanted me to try and take it all apart and see if I could, you know, stretch it more even, there's such a hard memory where the paint has dried around the edge, so it's kind of locked that edge into the painting. But sometimes you can kind of fudge and finesse it and muscle it into another position. Okay, now we'll work on our little oil painting. And I've cut the spacer boards here out of black foam core. And the painting is 6 by 9, so I cut the boards 5.5 by 7.5. And sometimes I'll use, you know, like 3 or 4 foam core and then a matte 4-ply mat or 2. The idea is to get it fairly flush to the surface. And you know, the black foam core comes in big 32 by 40 sheets, and I've already pre-cut some here. So then what I do is on the edge of the foam core, I do a little ATG tape all the way around in little strips right to the edge. And then I take Arlene's tacky glue and put little dots around it. And this would be how I would put the final board up against the frame in there. But what I'm going to do first is put these other 3 boards together, and that's kind of more of a random thing where I just I put strips around the outside because I'm using full pieces here. You know, you can put narrow strips along the inside edge, but this frame is so small I might as well, you know, do it this way. And then I'll put dots of the glue all around. And then I just put one on top of another. And the ATG tape is kind of there to hold it in place while the tacky glue is drying. It's really the tacky glue that holds it. But if this was a more normal size, I mean a much bigger piece, I probably would put ATG tape in a square in the center, and depending on how big it is, you know, the configuration to all this stuff would change. But the goal is so that it doesn't fall apart. You've got to remember, with humidity, temperature changes, and things expanding and contracting, adhesives can fail sometimes, but when you do it like this, I've never had one that ever fell off. And see, I kind of got ahead of myself with this one that's going into the frame. Normally I put the 4 pieces together and then do this as the last thing. And so all we do is kind of eyeball this into the frame and have equal space the best we can. And of course, if you have any ATG tape or any glue kind of hanging out over the edge, you want to try and get that out of the line of sight there. And then you just drop that in, and it floats a little while on the glue, and then just kind of center it in to the frame. Okay. Now, here's a slightly controversial part. I mean, this is a painting done by a premier Fargo artist, and like I said, this was a consignment piece, so it's already been bought and paid for, and it was $850. And I have a feeling someday, 100 years from now, someone's going to say, wow, that's an original Dan Jones, and who knows how much this could be worth, you know, as the years go by. But to have this hold onto this board, there's just no getting around it. There's got to be some adhesive here, and if you do it too non-aggressive, this thing is going to fall down. I mean, this is a pretty heavy board, so I end up having to put dots of Arlene's on there. And again, I'm just using dots, so if you wanted to pull it off, you could. What I would do is, if I was pulling this off after it dried over many years, is I would pull the whole thing away from the frame, and then once it's away from the frame, pry the piece off the board. And the surface of this, by the way, this is acid-free black foam core, and the surface of this should pull away the layer of foam core that's up against this painting. So I don't think the painting's going to pull apart because it's you know, on this board, and that's not going anywhere, but the foam core is you know, just foam, so that should pull off okay. So then I just put some dots of the glue around it. But I can guarantee you, if I tried to hold this down with acid-free linen tape, this is going to come back and it's going to fall, and on its way to the floor probably will do a lot of harm to the print. So doing it like this, I know it's going to stay for many, many years until you go to try and pull it apart. And you can see how close I've got that in there. And then what I do is take some of that 2-ply acid-free that's really thin and see if I can fit any of it in there. And see, this will float around a little while, but I'm doing the same thing where I'm trying to even the distance all the way around this thing. And you could see I could kind of move the painting back and forth. And see, when I tear it like this, I have an easier chance of having a tapered edge. But sometimes I'll have to pull a piece out and kind of fudge it around. Like this is so tight that it's hard to get even a piece of 2-ply acid-free. There goes one. And now if I pry this all the way down, I can, yeah, it's really so tight. I'm not going to be able to get an even acid-free board on each side of that side. So I'm just going to leave it like that because it's very tight to top and bottom. I mean, I guess I could put a piece of paper in there or something, but it's not really necessary when it's so tight. But you can see how nice that looks. And then what I like to do is put some Kleenex down to protect the surface, or anything, another board to protect the surface, and then put a little bit of weight on it while it's sitting there. And in fact, I'll just use this. And of course you can use anything for weight. This happens to be a little bucket of metal corner hangers. So I'd normally just let that set up a few hours. Ideally is let it set overnight. And then of course you need the regular backing and hangers like you've seen in the videos of you know, how to install a picture. I show how to make a paper backing and hangers and stuff like that. So that's about it for floater frames.